Imagine yourself standing at the edge of the ancient city of Troy, just as dawn begins to stretch its pale fingers across the sky. The soft glow of early morning brushes the high walls, bathing their rough stones in gentle light. You can hear the faintest stirrings, birds calling softly, the whisper of the breeze through olive branches, and far away, the steady rhythm of footsteps upon cobblestones. The city breathes quietly, as it always has, in the delicate pause between night and day. Troy is no mere fortress. It is a living place, filled with the slow, persistent rhythm of daily life. Within its walls, stone houses cluster close together, their terracotta roofs warm under the morning sun. Smoke curls lazily from chimneys where fires have just been rekindled to warm bread dough and simmer pots. The scent of freshly ground barley mingles with the salt temps of the nearby sea, carried softly by the breeze. Walk slowly down the narrow lanes, and you might see the women gathering at the communal well, their clay jars clinking gently as they fill them with cool, clear water. You may hear the steady scratch of a loom, weaving threads of wool into simple cloth, its rhythm almost hypnotic. A child's laughter drifts faintly from a courtyard, chasing a cat that darts between columns and shadows. This is a city of quiet endurance, where the pulse of ordinary life beats steadily beneath the weight of time. At the heart of Troy stands the palace of King Priam, a man of many years and many sons. Imagine him now, moving slowly through the vast halls, his steps careful on the worn stone floors. His face bears the soft lines of age and worry, but his eyes hold a quiet strength. Priam is a father, a ruler, a keeper of a fragile peace, even as the winds of fate begin to stir beyond his walls. Among his sons are Hector, the city's greatest defender, strong, steady, and devoted. You might imagine him in the early morning light, donning his armor with the practiced ease of a man who knows the weight of his duty. And Paris, younger and more restless, whose choices will soon send ripples far beyond these walls. But for now, these sons are simply boys and men moving through the familiar steps of their day's training, talking softly with friends, watching the sea. As you wander further, notice the quiet presence of the priests and priestesses, tending to the sacred fires and whispering prayers to gods who walk just beyond sight. The scent of burning incense hangs faintly in the air, a slow, soothing breath of smoke that curls upward toward the high ceilings. The city is alive with simple rituals, women weaving wreaths of olive leaves for the altars, farmers bringing fresh fruits and grains as offerings. In the market square, traders arrange baskets of figs, olives, and salted fish, their voices low and steady as they exchange goods and news. Yet beneath this peaceful rhythm, a tension lingers. You might feel it in the guarded glance of a soldier sharpening his spear, or the hurried footsteps of a messenger slipping through the streets. The stories whispered among the elders speak of distant lands, of alliances and promises made and broken, of a queen from another city whose beauty shines like a beacon, and the prince who crossed the seas to claim her. But these are threads yet to be woven fully into the city's tapestry. For now, Troy stands in its quiet dignity, its stone walls a shelter, its people a river of gentle motion, carrying on through the warm days and cool nights. Imagine the sound of the sea nearby, steady and unchanging, the waves folding softly into the shore like a lullaby. You, walking among the olive trees and fragrant herbs, are part of this endless rhythm. The rhythm of lives, lived not in haste, but with a measured grace that stretches into the slow passing of seasons. The sun climbs higher now, warming the stone steps and filling the courtyards with light. In the distance, the sound of flutes begins, carried by a gentle breeze of music both ancient and familiar. It is the music of Troy, and as the day unfolds, so too does the story, moving ever onward, as steady and inevitable as the tide. Part 2. Helen and Paris. The spark as the gentle rhythm of Troy's days flows on. The slow turning of time carries a quiet promise of change. Imagine yourself stepping beyond the city's sturdy walls, wandering across sun-dappled hills and olive groves that stretch softly toward the horizon. The air here holds the sweet fragrance of thyme and wildflowers, mingling with the distant murmuring of the sea. Far to the south lies the city of Sparta, strong and elegant, ruled by King Menelaus. The name of his wife, Helen, drifts like a whispered secret on the wind, a woman said to possess a beauty so profound that it could quiet even the restless tides. Yet Helen's life is not merely about outward grace. It is a quiet world of gardens, heavy with roses, of soft fabrics that brush like a gentle breeze, and of quiet moments where a heart dreams of something just beyond reach. In Sparta, Helen moves through her days with the calm assurance of one wrapped in the warmth of familiarity. Yet, beneath her serene surface lies the subtle stirrings of deeper thoughts, thoughts that drift slowly like clouds across a summer sky. She is surrounded by attendants who move softly, by music that flows like water through palace halls, and by the ever-present scent of blooming jasmine and freshly cut herbs. Meanwhile, far from Sparta and nestled within the stone walls of Troy, Prince Paris walks among the olive trees. Unlike his older brother Hector, who is steady and grounded like the ancient oaks, Paris carries in his step a restless lightness, a yearning for distant horizons. His gaze lingers on the far-off sea, where ships sail like shadows, slipping toward unknown shores. Paris is known for his charm, his easy smile, and a certain grace that seems to glide with the breeze. Yet beneath this grace lies a quiet uncertainty, a heart searching for meaning amid the weight of royal expectation. In the soft light of dawn, you might see him wandering alone, his thoughts like drifting leaves, pondering the future that lies just beyond the city's gates. One day, as the rhythm of Troy continues its steady flow, Paris is sent on a journey, a diplomatic mission to Sparta. His task is simple: to bring messages of peace and friendship from King Priam, his father, to Menelaus. But as the ships set sail, carrying Paris across the shimmering waters, the slow current of fate begins to pull the story in a new direction. Upon arrival in Sparta, Paris is greeted with hospitality and warmth. The palace is alive with the soft glow of oil lamps, the murmur of voices, and the gentle strumming of lyres. Helen, in her graceful presence, moves like a figure from a dream, her laughter light, like the tinkling of glass beads, her eyes reflecting the soft light of the hearth. When Paris and Helen meet, it is not with haste or clamor, but with the quiet unfolding of two lives drawing gently together. Walking through gardens heavy with the scent of roses and orange blossoms, listening to the murmur of fountains that sing quietly in the courtyards. Their conversation flows like a calm river, words, measured eyes, meeting in moments that stretch like the slow turning of a sunbeam. In these soft exchanges, a bond begins to form, not sudden or fiery, but steady and deep, like roots taking hold beneath the earth. As days pass in this tranquil city, Paris finds himself drawn into the gentle rhythm of Sparta's life. Helen, too, feels the pull of something beyond her known world, tender hope, a quiet longing that whispers like a breeze through the leaves. The choice that follows is not abrupt, but a slow, unfolding current. Paris and Helen depart from Sparta on ships that glide softly through calm waters, their passage marked by the gentle splash of oars and the steady creak of wood. The sea air carries the mingled scents of salt and pine, the horizon stretching endlessly ahead like a whispered promise. Back in Troy, whispers begin to stir beneath the olive groves and along the stone-paved streets. The city's people sense a change in the air, a subtle shift in the steady rhythm they have long known. King Priam, the wise and aged ruler, watches quietly, his heart both heavy and hopeful. He knows that the threads of fate have begun to weave a new pattern, one that will reach far beyond the walls of Troy. Yet, even as the wheels of destiny turn, life in Troy continues with its gentle, enduring pulse. The market still hums softly, with traders exchanging olives and honey. Women still gather at the wells to share quiet conversations, and children chase each other in the warm afternoon light. But beneath this calm, the future waits patiently, like a soft shadow just beyond the glow of the hearth. The story of Helen and Paris is not one of sudden storms, but of slow tides pulling gently at the shores of a city destined to change forever. Imagine yourself standing once more on a quiet hillside, watching as the sun dips low behind the hills, painting the sky in soft shades of amber and rose. The gentle rustle of olive leaves in the evening breeze carries with it the weight of stories yet to be told. In this moment, the world seems to hold its breath, and you are here, quietly listening to the steady pulse of history, wrapped in the soft embrace of night. Part 3. The siege begins. Heroes and gods. Imagine the city of Troy in the days that follow Helen's arrival, a place where calm and tension exist side by side, like the steady ebb and flow of the tide. The sun casts a warm, golden glow over the city's ancient stone walls, softening their rough edges and bathing the streets in a mellow light. The air hums quietly with the rhythm of daily life, yet beneath this calm surface, a slow, insistent pulse begins to beat a rhythm of preparation, anticipation, and the quiet unfolding of fate. King Priam, the wise and venerable ruler, moves thoughtfully through the palace halls, his footsteps muffled by thick rugs woven in the muted tones of the earth. He carries the years and weight of his crown with a solemn grace, his eyes often drifting to the horizon where the sea meets the sky, as if seeking guidance in the distant waves. The burden of impending conflict presses gently yet persistently upon his shoulders, a silent reminder of the fragile balance he strives to maintain. His eldest son, Hector, stands as the city's steadfast protector, embodying the weight of Troy's hopes and fears. Imagine Hector now, walking the battlements at dawn, the cool morning air brushing softly against the polished bronze of his armor. His breath forms faint clouds that mingle with the faint scent of wild herbs growing near the ramparts. He rests his hand on the hilt of his sword, feeling its worn leather grip, a tangible link to countless battles, both past and yet to come. His gaze lingers over the sprawling city below, where rooftops glow warm beneath the rising sun, and the faint stirrings of life begin anew. The warriors of Troy gather gradually, their presence a tapestry of quiet strength and steady resolve. They move through the city's winding streets with measured steps, faces calm yet marked by the solemn awareness of what lies ahead. Among them is Paris, the prince whose choice would shape the fate of Troy, walking with a lighter step and a gaze that carries a mixture of hope, uncertainty, and the lingering memory of Helen's smile. He weaves through the crowd, his armor catching glimmers of sunlight, reflecting both the promise and fragility of the days to come. Bound by honor and the call to reclaim what was lost, the shoreline is dotted with ships, their wooden hulls resting gently against the soft waves. The sound of oars dipping rhythmically into the sea blends with the cries of distant seabirds, and the sharp tang of salt lingers in the air. The camp hums with quiet preparation, the rustle of armor, the whispered plans of commanders, and the faint crackle of fires that burn steadily through the night. Among the Greek leaders stands Agamemnon, the commanding king of Mycenae, whose presence fills the camp with steady authority. By his side is Achilles, the mighty warrior whose name carries both reverence and the weight of unspoken grief. Picture Achilles as he moves along the shoreline, his armor shimmering like a pale flame in the early light, his eyes distant yet burning with a slow, smoldering fire. There is a tension to him, a restless energy held in check, as if a storm is quietly gathering behind calm eyes. Each step he takes upon the wooden planks echoes with the promise of both glory and sorrow. As the siege settles into a rhythm, the days and nights unfold slowly, marked by moments of bravery, reflection, and the muted sounds of conflict. Their laughter, a fragile thread weaving through the somber air. Within Troy's walls, life continues in its quiet steadiness. Mothers sit by the fire, weaving cloth under the soft glow of oil lamps. Priests chant low prayers beneath the flickering light of sacred flames, and children play with simple toys. The city breathes, holding its collective breath as fate's slow hand moves through its streets. Above all, the gods watch, unseen yet deeply present. Goddess of love and desire, goddess of wisdom and war, whispers counsel to warriors and kings alike. Imagine yourself wandering through Troy's narrow streets, her presence a subtle undercurrent guiding their choices, casting long, gentle shadows that dance upon the ancient stones. Voices carry the weight of responsibility and the softness of homesick, longing section, not of fury but of duty and resolve, nurturing both passion and consequence. Hector meets with his fellow warriors in hushed tones. Zeus, the mighty and distant ruler of the heavens, weighs the scales of fate with measured hands, his gaze steady and inscrutable. Aphrodite, the story of heroes, weaves deeper, marked by the faint impressions of footsteps and the slow, unyielding passage of time. Athena, their influences are like faint threads woven through the fabric of Troy's existence, shaping the currents beneath the surface. In the quiet hours of dusk, the scent of burning herbs mingles with the soft saltiness of the evening air, and the sky deepens into a canvas of indigo sprinkled with emerging stars. Torches flicker steadily along the ramparts near the city gates, a gentle veil settling upon the landscape as the sun dips low. There they speak of the gardens left behind. Each clash beyond the walls is a delicate balance between courage and loss, honor and the fragile thread of life. The earth beneath their feet bears silent witness. The dust rises softly with each movement of men and horses, a fire tempered by grief and bound by a code of honor, enduring and quietly defiant. Amid this unfolding epic, Achilles' wrath simmers like a slow-burning flame. Hector's heart beats with the rhythm of Troy itself, steady. The faint murmur of the gods' voices can be heard, the soft rustling of wings, the subtle weaving of fate's intricate threads, and the unspoken whispers that bind mortals and immortals alike. The rhythm of war is not a sudden tempest, but a slow tide that rises steadily each day, writing another page in a vast and quiet saga. Through it all, Part 4, the turning tides, death's wrath, and the Trojan horse. Imagine the slow turning of days as the siege stretches on. The sun tracing familiar arcs across the sky above Troy and the encamped Greeks. The rhythm of war beats on, steady and unyielding, yet beneath its surface a subtle shift begins to unfold, small moments gathering like quiet ripples before a wave. Among the Greek camp, tension grows as Achilles, once withdrawn in silent rage, wrestles with the weight of loss and pride. Recall Achilles' absence, a warrior, unmatched in strength and speed, his withdrawal, a shadow over the Greek forces. He has refused to fight, wounded by the loss of honor and the quarrel with Agamemnon. His tents lie quiet, the flicker of their lamps soft and still, while the camp buzzes dimly around him. But fate, as always, moves with gentle insistence. The death of Patroclus, Achilles' closest companion and dear friend, stirs the waters of this tension. Imagine Patroclus, clad in Achilles' armor, riding into the thick of battle, like a flickering flame breaking the dusk. His heart pounds with both courage and hope as he rides beneath the pale light of dawn, the scent of fresh earth and cold steel mingling in the air. He fights bravely, his sword flashing and shield steady, but the tide of war turns against him, and he falls beneath the spear of Hector. The loss is a heavy cloak over Achilles' heart, a cold shadow that moves slowly but surely through his soul. The quiet stillness of grief settles deep within him, the rhythm of his breath slowed, weighted by sorrow and the bitter ache of revenge. The very earth seems to echo with the silence left by Patroclus' absence, the soft whisper of footsteps long gone, the faint fading of a familiar voice. Achilles' grief is a deep and steady tide, pulling him back toward the battlefield with renewed purpose. The return of this great warrior is like a slow, gathering storm on the horizon, quiet at first, but impossible to ignore. His footsteps mark the earth with the inevitability of fate, and the ground seems to tremble faintly beneath his presence. The gleam of his armor catches the light of the rising sun, his figure a solemn silhouette against the pale sky. He walks the walls, feeling the cool roughness of the stones beneath his fingertips, hearing the distant murmur of the city that relies on his strength. He knows the danger that looms, yet he stands steady as the walls that shelter his home. The quiet moments before battle are thick with unspoken fears and steadfast courage, the whispered prayers of women and children, the soft shuffle of feet on cobblestones, the steady beat of hearts braced for what is to come. The final encounter between Hector and Achilles is a moment suspended in time, a clash, not just of strength, but of wills and destinies, intertwined by fate. The air holds a hushed expectancy, as if even the wind itself pauses to listen. Their weapons flash slowly under the sun, the clang of bronze ringing softly through the stillness, a measured rhythm like distant thunder. In their eyes, the flicker of duty, the quiet acceptance of what must be. When Achilles strikes down Hector, the quiet stillness of the moment deepens, heavy with the inevitability of loss and the echo of a city's mourning. Yet even in this moment, life within Troy moves gently forward, its people carrying on beneath the sun and stars. Imagine the soft scent of olive oil and fresh bread drifting from hearths, the gentle murmur of prayers rising to gods unseen, the delicate brush of linen robes against worn stone floors. The city breathes with a fragile resilience, its heartbeat slow but steady. The war grinds on, a slow turning of the wheel. The Trojan horse emerges from this quiet, plodding, a giant wooden construct, hollow and still, a vessel of both hope and deception. Imagine the horse resting on the shore, its smooth timbers catching the last light of day, a silent monument to the slow unfolding of cunning and fate. The Greeks withdraw, leaving the horse at Troy's gates, their departure a soft and measured retreat into the shadows. The distant sound of oars dipping gently into the water blends with the whisper of the night wind. Inside the city, curiosity stirs a quiet murmur of speculation and wonder, while others feel the faintest stir of unease, a whisper of warning beneath the calm. Imagine the council gathered in the twilight, voices low and cautious, the flicker of torchlight casting dancing shadows on ancient faces etched with years and wisdom. Night falls like a velvet curtain, wrapping Troy in a gentle embrace. The air carries the faint scent of olive groves and distant salt water, mingling with the hushed voices of those who linger beneath the stars. A cool breeze stirs the leaves of fig trees, and the soft rustle is a quiet song beneath the deepening sky. The horse stands silent and still, a giant shadow leaning against the ancient stones, and the soft footfalls of those who move with purpose and doubt alike. Imagine yourself standing near the gate, feeling the slow pulse of the city's heartbeat mingling with the faint creak of timber. The night deepens. The city's fate turns quietly, the wheels of destiny turning without haste, but with inexorable certainty. Troy falls not in a thunderous storm, but in the still, small moments when vigilance wanes and shadows lengthen. The city's streets fill with the silent steps of invaders, the clash of arms softened by the cloak of night. Yet even in this moment of finality, the echoes of Troy's life linger, the laughter of children long past, the scent of blooming flowers in hidden gardens, the steady rhythm of everyday moments that resist the passage of time. As dawn breaks, the ruins stand silent and still, bathed in the gentle light of a new day. The story of Troy moves beyond the walls, carried on the winds of memory and myth, a soft and endless murmur beneath the stars. It is a tale not only of war and loss, but also of love, honor, and the quiet persistence of human spirit, woven like threads in a vast tapestry, drifting gently through time. Part 5. The Women of Troy. Echoes in the ashes. The war is over. The fire has faded, and the women remain. Imagine once again the city in its final quiet. The roar of battle is gone. The great timbers of Troy's gates, once proud and tall, now lie broken and blackened by flame. The clang of bronze is a memory. The gods, perhaps, have turned their attention elsewhere. What is left now are the voices of the women, their breath, their steps, their silence. The air is still thick with the scent of charcoal, and drifting cinders flicker softly in the sky like dull stars. The walls no longer speak. They do not echo the voices of kings or warriors. Hector, Paris, Deiphobus, Troilus, Polydorus, her children are names in ash. Her city, once the breath and body of her life, lies at her feet. The queen Hecuba walks slowly through the palace courtyard. It is not a place of ceremony now. Ivy creeps across scorched marble. A fig tree near the broken colonnade still clings to green life, its leaves rustling gently in the sea wind. A mother's voice, ancient in its calm. She does not speak, she only walks. Andromache does not yet know when they will come for him, but she knows they will. Her arms tighten. She does not cry. She saw the fire in her dreams, the spears, the collapsing roof beams, but no one listened. No one believed. What good is foresight in a world that refuses to listen? He sees only beauty, not burden. He sees a prize, not a profit. But Cassandra sees everything, and that knowing is her armor. Her fingers leave no mark, but the stone holds her touch just the same. She counts her losses, not in coin or conquest, but in faces. She sees the halls of Mycenae, dark with treachery. She sees her death. She touches a scorched pillar once, carved with the likenesses of gods and ancestors. The stone is still warm. Some murmur prayers in the names of gods who have not answered in years. She walks barefoot down to the sea, where Achilles' tomb rises from the sand. She asked for dignity. She asked not to be bound. She was granted that, at least. The Greeks claim the ghost of Achilles demanded her blood, a final offering to a restless spirit. Some call it justice, others call it honor. But to Polyxena, it is simply the end. It is not loud. The soldiers speak in clipped, practiced voices. The captains nod. A gesture here, a glance there, and a life is changed. Her eyes are fixed on the horizon, on Sparta, on judgment, on memory. She is both origin and aftermath. Once a prize of Achilles, then a bargaining piece, now adrift in the shadow of war. Not triumphantly, but in lullabies and laments, old songs sung in doorways, and during harvest, songs of grain and moonlight, and mothers at the loom. There is only the slow rhythm of putting one foot before the other and breathing. The wind takes them home, though for many that journey will be long and bitter. Andromache follows her, walking with the measured pace of one carrying both grief and something more fragile, hope. They sit in the shell of temples, speaking to each other in soft voices. They do not ask for rescue. They know there is none, the son of Hector, the hope of Troy. But now no city remains to inherit. Another wears the cloak her mother wove the spring before the siege. Andromache, Polyxena floating like dust through an open window, of olive groves, of cool breezes on the battlements, of laughter in the spring. When the meadows outside the Sion gate were filled with purple crocus and soft white windflowers, she boards Menelaus's ship without resistance. She does not speak to him. He does not speak to her. There is only the wind and the rising tide and the unspoken weight of 1,000 deaths carried between them. Her arms are wrapped around his small frame, his head buried against her shoulder. In whispered tones, she tells him stories. He listens, perhaps not to the words, but to the tone of her voice, steady, even now. Yet the shadow hangs over them both. The Greeks will not leave a boy who might grow into a warrior. Cassandra walks alone. Her steps are neither hurried nor hesitant. Her eyes are distant. She sees too much. Apollo's curse lingers in her every word. She spoke of the horse. She begged them to leave it outside the gate. She sees the ship she will board. Agamemnon watches her. Across the courtyard, a different kind of procession takes shape. The women of Troy are being catalogued, counted, parceled out like grain or bronze. Some women stare at the ground. Some look straight into the eyes of their captors. Helen stands apart. She is not a prisoner in chains, but she is not free either. Her hair is unbound, her garments torn. The Greeks whisper about her. Some blame her, still. Others merely stare. But Helen does not look back at Troy. And what of Polyxena, the youngest daughter of Priam, gentle and sharp-minded? They say she stood tall, her chin lifted to the sky, and her name became a ripple in the larger song of grief. Briseis is there too, her fate less clear. As the ships are loaded, as sails are drawn and ropes untied, the city behind them fades. Some women are left behind, too old, too broken, or simply forgotten in the confusion. One clutches a doll, carved from olive wood, and then there are those who sing, not loudly. The Greeks set sail, their prows cut through the sea. Behind them, Troy remains, not in its walls, not in its fires, but in its women, in the way they held one another as the world shifted, in the quiet strength of breath drawn against despair, in memory, in myth. The war may have been won, but the last word belongs to the women who endured it. And if you listen now, in the stillness between thoughts, you might hear their names, Cassandra, Hecuba. They do not cry out, they do not ask to be saved. They only remain steady and waiting, like the rhythm of the tide. Part 6. Homeward winds, the long returns of the Greeks. The war is over, but the sea, the gods, and memory still stir. Troy lies in ashes, its ruins smoldering beneath the soft glow of dawn. The towering walls, once mighty and unyielding, now crumble beneath the weight of years and fire. Their sails catch the morning breeze as oars dip into the water in steady rhythm. Yet, aboard each vessel, the mood is heavy, laden with exhaustion and unease. The victory is muted. The war is won, but at a cost that no song can fully capture. A faint trace of smoke drifts skyward, slowly dissipating into the cool morning air. The beach, once crowded with armies and horses, now stands silent, waves gently lapping at the shore. When Agamemnon steps inside, unaware of the knives hidden in shadow, Cassandra follows silently, her prophetic voice silenced by doom. The homecoming closes, not with triumph, but with a quiet and terrible finality. The spilling of blood on cold stone, the echo of a kingdom's unraveling. The sea rocks, their vessel gently pushed off course by Poseidon's silent wrath. Their destination is Egypt, a land of mysteries and whispered questions. Here, priests murmur tales. Was the Helen who sailed to Troy the true Helen, or merely a phantom sent by Hera to incite war? Some say the real Helen remained far from the flames, hidden in shadow, while a spectral double suffered in her stead, carrying with them the distant memories of clashing swords and whispered prayers. And who bore the weight of sacrifice, having sent his daughter Iphigenia to appease the gods? His gaze is steady, but his soul bears invisible scars. The wise and patient king of Pylos. There is Odysseus, master of cunning, and the architect of the wooden horse that sealed Troy's fate. Yet his journey home is not swift or easy. Ragged and unrecognized, Odysseus returns to Ithaca. Penelope weaves, still, her loom clicking quietly, testing and waiting. As you listen, feel those soft threads weaving through time, the rhythm of oars dipping into the sea, Helen's quiet weaving by the fire, Penelope's patient breath in the night. Their reunion is silent, a breath held after years, a testament to survival and the fragile grace of homecoming. Poseidon's wrath transforms his voyage into an odyssey of endurance and loss. He resists the forgetfulness of the Lodociders, outwits the Cyclops, Polyphemus, evades the enchantments of Circe, and endures years of longing under Calypso's spell, finds a quieter welcome. Speaking with shadows of the past, every lost sailor, every whispered song carried on firelight's glow, and faces monsters and tempests that test his very soul. Time slips away, companions fall to the sea or to despair. His people greet him with respect, and he spends years teaching the virtues of prudence and peace. The memory of Troy settles gently around him. Bearer of Heracles' bow and arrows, returns bearing wounds as much spiritual as physical, shunned and isolated. Neoptolemus takes Andromache, the Trojan widow, to new lands where their children will rise to legend. True to his fate, carries the remnants of Troy westward toward a destiny that will echo through time, a myth for another age, like ash after a fire, too heavy for words, yet impossible to forget. His return is a slow, steady pulse in the long heartbeat of history. Helen weaves in Sparta, the rhythmic clicking of her loom marking time like a heartbeat, weaving and unweaving threads of a story that defies simple telling. Their return is watched with quiet eyes, not with joy, but with the weight of remembrance and the shadow of what was lost. The city no longer welcomes him as a hero. His wife has strayed, and the people regard him with distant suspicion. The favor of the gods has turned cold. Unmoored from his past life, he sets sail once more into unknown seas, perhaps destined to found distant cities under foreign stars or to fade quietly into legend. His spear and crown lie forgotten, leaving only silence in their wake. Alongside him walks Cassandra, daughter of Priam, the cursed Trojan princess, whose visions of doom were never heeded. Barefoot and silent, she moves like a shadow across the ship's deck, eyes distant and filled with the weight of knowledge too terrible to share. The true story lies in the journey home, the scattering of souls, the silence between oars, the long nights of waiting and remembrance. From these sands, the Greek ships slip away, bronze-studded hulls cutting through the calm sea with practiced ease. Within the palace walls, Clytemnestra, Agamemnon's wife, waits with a heart hardened by grief and resentment. The god's punishment was swift and unforgiving. Storms shattered his ship on hidden rocks, and the sea claimed his body. His name survives as a whispered warning among sailors, a cautionary tale of pride and its price, spoken softly before voyages begin, carried on the breath of the wind. The spoils of war are heavy, including Cassandra, taken from the sacred temple of Athena, an act steeped in sacrilege and omen. Clytemnestra's thoughts drift to the daughter she lost, a casualty of her husband's ambition and the gods' inscrutable will. Behind them lies the ruin of Troy. Ahead, the uncertain journey home. Agamemnon, king of kings, returning with shadows. At the helm of this weary fleet sails Agamemnon, high king of the Achaeans. A man whose ambition led armies to war. Their journey leads them to Mycenae, a city that waits in the stillness of expectation. The palace floors, covered with rich red tapestries, seem to promise honor, yet beneath their folds lie the cold certainty of fate. Menelaus and Helen, ghosts of Sparta. Elsewhere, the ship bearing Menelaus and Helen drifts slowly over restless waves. Menelaus, burdened by loss and longing, keeps his silence. Diomedes and the gods' revenge. Diomedes, once bold and victorious in battle, returns to Argos changed. Ajax the Lesser, hubris, and the sea, not all return from Troy. Ajax the Lesser, proud and reckless, defiled Athena's temple, an act that unleashed divine wrath. The war was but a single chapter. Troy echoes in every shattered homecoming. Even now, the Greeks came home, or they did not. They were remembered or forgotten. But Troy, in memory and myth, endures, a slow tide beneath the surface, carrying you gently into dreams. Part 7. The House of Aeneas. Troy's shadow. In the west, some fled with fire behind them. Not all were kings. Not all were lost. As the smoke of Troy wound into the sky and the flames settled into embers, not all who walked its streets perished in the ruins. Among them was a man not born for glory in that war, but for the stories that would come after. Aeneas, a prince, but not of Priam's direct line. The son of Anchises and the goddess Aphrodite. Warrior, bearer of burdens, and father to a people not yet formed. He did not revel in battle, nor seek vengeance, as the Greeks poured through the broken walls. Imagine a woman behind them, Creusa, Aeneas's wife, her voice growing faint, lost in the night's confusion. When he turned back for her, she was gone, her form a soft ghost in the dust. Only her spirit returned, whispering that his destiny lay elsewhere. He carried something else, the memory of his ancestors, the statues of his household gods, and most important of all, his aging father on his back, and his young son by the hand. Other Trojans gathered around him, survivors, craftsmen, servants, priests, and widows, a small community adrift on the sea, following a thread through chaos. He did not linger in the final days of the siege. He traveled to the underworld, led by the Sibyl, the priestess of Apollo, through caverns that smelled of damp moss and old stone. In the realm of Hades, he met his father, Anchises, who showed him the spirits yet to be born, the future of his people. There, for a time, Aeneas lingered. Dido wove him into her life, and the walls of her city rose. Yet destiny has no patience. The gods whispered once again, reminding Aeneas that his path lay not in comfort, but in struggle. The local tribes resisted the strangers from the sea. Aeneas fought again, though he had long since grown weary of battle. Imagine them winding through alleys heavy with smoke, stepping over fallen marble, walking away from the fire rather than toward it, not in revenge, not in rebuilding Troy. His son, Ascanius, also known as Ulus, would go on to found Alba Longa, whose distant descendant, many generations hence, would be Romulus, the founder of Rome. But in founding something new, westward, across the wide unknown, Aeneas did not know where to go, but the gods spoke softly in dreams and signs, in the way the birds flew, in the direction of the winds. It rippled outward into new lands and new legends. It shaped cities and empires. Aeneas became not a king, but a father, not of a single people, but of a vast idea. His ship was not of war, but of flight. They sailed past islands haunted by monsters and temptation. Carthage, where Queen Dido welcomed them with warmth and offered shelter, love, and peace. So he left, quietly, and Dido's voice was the last thing he heard as her city slipped from view. A curse, a cry, or a farewell, not just as history, but as myth. A myth that tells us ruin is not the end, that from ash, roots may grow, that those who carry their past with reverence, who bear their elders and guide their children, shape more than kingdoms. They shape time itself. The journey through darkness, like Odysseus, Aeneas too would walk through shadow. Imagine walking among the unborn, seeing your great-grandchildren's great-grandchildren, distant and shining like stars, just before dawn. There, Aeneas learned his true purpose, to plant the seed of a new people, to build a nation whose shadow would stretch across ages. Arrival in Italy. Finally, Aeneas landed on the shores of Latium, not greeted, but challenged, for destiny is never simple. War awaited once more. Among the earth and rivers of Italy, he carved a place not just for himself, but for a future. He married Lavinia, the daughter of King Latinus, and founded Lavinium. From fire and ruin, a new story began to glow, the gentle echo of Troy. And so, the story of Troy did not end at its fall, nor in the fading footsteps of Greek kings. Troy, in memory, traveled west, and perhaps, if you were to listen long enough to the winds off the Mediterranean, if you closed your eyes and stood on the stone shores of Italy at dusk, you might still hear the faint echo of a ship cutting through the water, a father's slow breath, a child's quiet steps, and the whisper of gods. Not in footsteps or miles, but in memory, in myth, in the quiet folds of time where history becomes story, and story becomes a kind of dreaming. A city not unlike any other, with traders at market, stone carvers in courtyards, children chasing after goats between columns worn by touch. Troy before the war, before the ships, before the name was wrapped in fate. We began in the olive-dappled shadows of a city that was not yet doomed, a city of gods and men, where the walls reached up in praise and in fear, where each dawn brought more olive bread than prophecy, where kings once believed they ruled before the gods reminded them otherwise. It was punishment and pride, glory and madness, longing and loss. It was Achilles, the invincible, undone by his own anger. Hector, noble and bound by duty, whose death would haunt poetry forever. And then came a guest, a prince, a shepherd, a fated choice, and in doing so, unraveled a continent. And when they sailed away together, whether by love or by spell or by plan, the world began to tilt. He came to Sparta and found Helen, daughter of Zeus, wife of Menelaus, queen made legend. Agamemnon returned to his wife and never left the threshold again. With his father on his back, his gods in his hands, and his son beside him, he left behind not revenge, but remembrance. He sailed toward Italy, toward fate, toward Rome, yet unborn. Helen returned to Sparta, untouched, forgiven, or merely tolerated, her beauty unchanged, her past unspoken. The war that followed, 10 years, or 1,000 in dreaming, was never just war. And in the background, the gods, weaving, whispering, watching, not always wisely. Troy endured, until it didn't. Through exile, turned to foundation. And in the end, not even battle, but trickery. A horse left behind, hollow and waiting, filled not with kindness, but cunning. Perhaps with your head cradled against a soft pillow, or simply drifting in your own twilight. The sea is still, the gates opened, the city burned, and time moved on. But even fire does not end all things. The echoes after each built atop the bones of the one before, like memories layered in the mind. From that final night emerged not just ghosts, but seeds. Odysseus sailed in circles, searching for his home across wind-blown islands and beguiling shores. And Aeneas, not a victor, not a king, but a bearer of burdens, carried the memory of Troy westward. There rose a city destined to endure, whose empire knows no end. Virgil, the Aeneid, from ashes to marble, from Ilium to empire, the myth lived on, where Troy sleeps now. And so now, you lie here too, at the edge of the story. But Troy lingers, not in the earth alone. Though archaeologists have dug layer upon layer, city upon city, Troy I, 2, 3, all the way to Troy 7 and beyond. No, Troy also lingers in the voice of Homer, who sang the Iliad not as history, but as truth. It lingers in the phrase, the face that launched 1,000 ships, Helen's legacy, still whispered in language. It lingers in Virgil's vision of endurance, of fleeing, not as failure, but as beginning. And it lingers here, in you, listening. You have watched it fall and watched it rise again in words. Because this myth, like so many, asks not only to be heard, but held. The long sleep of heroes, a soft burial of the day. And tonight, as you drift downward, you are not unlike those who came before, weary from journeys, heavy with names, longing for peace. Let the stories fade into silhouettes behind your eyelids. Let the names grow softer, Priam, Andromache, Achilles, Cassandra, Paris, Hector, Aeneas. They have lain down, and their dreams have become our myths. Troy is not in flames now. Troy is not even ruined. Troy is asleep, and you, dear listener, may sleep too. You have wandered its paths, sat in its gardens, looked out from its towers. Let your mind loosen from the thread. Let the wind soften. Let the sea pull back to its gentler tide. Sleep, sleep, beauty bright, dreaming in the joys of night. You are far from the shore now, far from war, far from prophecy. Only the hush of the stars remains. Only the slow breath of memory. Sleep well.